institutional mechanisms. Institutions means the institutions of Pakistan, government of Pakistan, and institutions of government, People's Republic of China. Institution means ministry hai, department hai, bank hai, but of course under government control, since this is a government project. Private sector ka project nahi hai. So we will be looking at it from a different angle of the government. Up, I'll start with the Chinese side. Now this, whatever I'm showing you, these have been approved by the government of both sides. और इस पे बड़ी ले दे के बाद ये चीजें तय हुई हैं. So for you it is very easy कि जी मैं सिर्फ बता दूं कि किस तरीके से China on the Chinese side, how the project, the process is done, what is the methodology, who does it, which department does it, which ministry does it, and how are these ministries involved and what are their powers and to do these things. So on the Chinese side, but these of course have been determined after a lot of negotiations, after a lot of give and take. But then of course the Chinese have their own way of doing things. Pakistan has we have our own way of doing things. ये जो international organizations हैं, World Bank है, Asian Development Bank है, JICA है, Canadian, I've forgotten उसका क्या नाम है, whatever, USAID है, उनके अपने अपने तरीके हैं. And every country has the right to say that this is the way I want it done. You can't tell them this is how I want it done. So of course we do say, but then you come to an agreement and then you go ahead. The Chinese side may, now as I said, this is a huge project, but this arrangement is for all CPEC projects. It is not only for ML-1 project, it is for CPEC projects. Since ML-1 is a CPEC project, then we have to follow this system. Now Chinese side mein, the main final authority lies with the president of the country. जो आजकल President Xi है. He is the final authority. He just gives a nod and things are done. So you give final authority hai. Since ML-1 is a big project, naturally the president then comes into he is part of this one way or the other. So president ke baad, then the Chinese have a state council of the People's Republic of China. Now this is a very strong political body. Iske baghair, it is like their, you can say, cabinet. You have people from all professions, all walks of life, and the state council. But this is, as I said, a political body which then, of course, works under the president. Then the president and the state council, these are political things, political entities. Now, when it comes down to actual working, now we come down to the ministry level. Ye state council again is, as I said, is almost equal to the cabinet, or maybe आप समझिए कि parliament का हिस्सा है उनका. उनका तो चूंकि democratic process नहीं है, but they have a stable system. That is one thing going for China, that they have had a stable political government for years and years on end. They have their issues, but it is very stable. So the third important body after the State Council is the National Development and Reform Commission. This is known as NDRC. It is a very, very strong body for any international project that is coming up with China and some other country. It has to go to the National Development and Reform Commission. Now this is synonymous and equal to our Ministry of Planning. The entire planning spectrum, whether it is roads, whether it is railways, whether it is ports and shipping, whether it is agriculture, whether it is education, whether it is the other social sectors, health hai, or दूसरे energy sector hai, जो भी whatever, they have to go through the National Development and Reform Commission. So very strong body. It has its different sectors. They deal sectoral functions and they have these officials who are real professionals in that sector. So for Pakistan Railways, when we were doing ML-1, they have their experts in the National Development and Reform Commission. Planning side pay that they see how China is going to help you. They see, look at all the aspects from the planning and reform point of view. So this is their National Development Reform Commission, NDRC. Once this department okays the project, then frankly there is no stopping, because the State Council is a political thing already done. President already on board hota hai. So National Development Reform Commission is the big ministry, very important ministry. If this ministry is not on board, the project cannot go through. And of course, they look at projects in their own way, from the planning point of view, from future China's point of view, China's sort of interest point of view, international relations point of view, har cheez ko ye dekhte hain. Then comes the Ministry of Commerce, MOFCOM, again very important ministry. This is their sort of Ministry of Finance, especially related to foreign finance. MOFCOM, Ministry of Finance and Commerce kar le. So this then this ministry gives the go ahead for the financial aspects. KG, yes, we can support this. Yes, we can sort of give up a pledge of $45 billion for CPEC related projects in Pakistan. Yes, we can do 60 billion if they want. You can increase this. That then depends, of course, on the relationships that you have with the country. But then these are people who are also responsible of how this money is going to come back. At what cost are you going to give the money? If it is a loan, at what rate will you give that loan? So basically, these are the people who are then managing. Then they give a lot of sort of aid in the form of scholarships there. So everything has to go through Ministry of Commerce. Again, strong ministry like our Ministry of Finance. Then the line ministry. Line ministry, it means कि जो महकमा है ना जिसका काम है, roads का अपना काम है. This is then in ML-1 case, we are looking at ML-1, railway ka project hai. Then they used to call it, they call it the National Railway Administration. It is actually a ministry. पहले इसको Ministry of Railways कहते थे. Now they call it National Railway Administration. Yet they are responsible for the entire railway spectrum, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is manufacturing of rolling stock, it is manufacturing of rails, or manufacturing of sleepers, or running of trains, or running of urban transport, or running of metro systems, jo rail based hai. Anything dealing with rail has to go through the Ministry of National Railway Administration. They have to agree on this. So from the ML-1 point of view, our main stop is the Ministry of Railways. Once they agree that, okay, this is a good project from railway point of view, then these people, and of course, people from our side, we go and convince the Ministry of Finance and the National Development and Reform Commission. But the system in China is such that once the Ministry of Railway agrees, they themselves will go to the Ministry of Finance and the National Development Reform Commission. Mostly it is their sort of job to convince the other ministries. But again, since railways is a very technical matter, the National Railway Administration also faces problems like our railway ministry faces when we talking to the Planning Commission and when we're talking to the finance people. The government, the finance and the National Development Reform Commission is looking at the country level. So they may have other priorities. So when on the railway side, maybe ML-1 for National Development and Reform Commission, maybe it is not that much important then. Maybe, but for luckily, ML-1 is the only project in Pakistan under CPEC which has been declared strategic. Number one. Secondly, both the Chinese side, National Development Reform Commission, and our Ministry of Planning and Reform इन दोनों का they have an agreement that we are going to ensure that ML-1 is done and the ML-1 project is done.
सर मैं तो
अच्छा, तो ये लाइन मिनिस्ट्री नेशनल रेलवे एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन, ये समझ लें मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रेलवेज है, सिर्फ उन्होंने नाम चेंज किया, वो अपने उनकी वो है, बिकॉज मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ रेलवेज उनका काफी एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव काम होता है, तो उन्होंने इसको एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन बना दी, मिनिस्ट्री का नाम छोड़ दी. देन in China for ML-1, Chinese financial institutions. Ministry of Finance is different. Chinese financial institutions, these are very important institutions where the loan for the project is then processed. If these people think that this project is not good enough, the Exim Bank hai, Export Import Bank of China, very strong bank, very rich bank in fact, and the other one is China Development Bank. So these two banks will be dealing with Pakistan as so far as ML-1 is concerned. I've been to them during the process of approving ML-1. So then these banks will also be looking at all the documents of the project, whether it is a PC1, whether it is the feasibility study, whether it is the preliminary design. They have their own experts. They set up, you have them in all banks and all international institutions. So then they look at the project and then finally they decide whether they're going to go with you or not. But these are those important institutions. Then of course, then we when I say the enterprise level, ये वो है कि project level पे, at the project level ML-1 specific, who are we going to deal with? These are then a group of a consortium of companies which were formed, which has been formed by the Chinese government, but they comprise of some very big companies. Some of the companies are so big that maybe they're even bigger than Pakistan in terms of financial strength. So huge companies. China Railway Engineering Corporation, a huge company. Then there's another one, China State Development Company, something like that. Again, maybe we come across it. So then this is the project level, at the enterprise, the industry level, where the project is actually to be done. We used to deal with this lead partner. The Chinese government had assigned this CREC with this job, that okay, you will do it. Now saying it CREC as lead partner, okay, very good. But behind scenes, a lot of companies have been competing for this position, but then it is the Chinese government's prerogative. And when I say the government, the Ministry of Railways, NRA, MOFCOM and NDRC, ये फैसला करती हैं which company of the government is going to undertake this $8 billion, $9 billion project. Almost all the big companies, they want to be part of it. उनका काम चलता है. Now, similarly, ये तो चाइना का मैंने बता दिया, ये 5-6 steps. The president, the state council, the NDRC, the MOFCOM, then NRA, National Railway Administration, banks and financial institutions, and then of course that. Now, Pakistan side was similar. The Prime Minister is the highest authority. Here, the president is not the highest authority. Then the federal cabinet, it has to give approval for the projects. So it is a very important sort of institution जहाँ पे collective wisdom सारे Prime Minister के नीचे जो लोग हैं वो उस पे बहस करते हैं. They look at it from different angles, from Ministry of Defense angle, from Ministry of Postal Services, agriculture point of view, this and that, industrial point of view, ये सारे लोग देखते हैं इसको. Then of course on our side, The project is taken up by the Ministry of Planning, Development and Reform. इसको हम MPDR सिंपल वर्ड्स में मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ प्लानिंग है, लेकिन इसका नाम ये चेंज करके MPDR कर दिया, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ प्लानिंग डेवलपमेंट एंड रिफॉर्म. ये उसी तरह NDRC का रोल ये कर रही. सो दे हैव देयर ओन सेक्टर्स फॉर ट्रांसपोर्ट सेक्टर इनका है, ट्रांसपोर्ट में फिर रेलवे को डील करते हैं, रोड्स को, मोटरवेज को, हाईवेज के, जितना वॉल्यूम ऑफ वर्क. ऑफ कोर्स चाइना इज टू बिग अ कंट्री, उनके साथ तो हम कंपेयर नहीं करते, but they have their systems of approving and things, but they have to look at the project from the planning and development point of view. Does the country need a project like ML-1? Why does it need a project like ML-1? Why do you need a railway system to connect Karachi to Peshawar? These are questions that they can ask, should be asking. Next important jo MOFCOM in China comparison mein, we have our Ministry of Finance, but whenever you are dealing with some foreign country, wherever money has to come from some foreign country, some loan has to be taken, Ministry of Finance ka ek division hai which is known as the Economic Affairs Division, EAD, very important, very strong division. These are the people then who start negotiating with the foreign partner on what kind of loan is required, how are we going to finance it. The foreign country also wants to know how the project is being financed, what kind of share will Pakistan government give, what kind of share do you have, what are your strengths, aapki kya sovereign guarantees kaise de sakte hain, koi aur guarantee kaise denge. So all these things, then this is done by the Economic Affairs Division. Then of course line ministry in Pakistan's case is the Ministry of Railways. For all practical reasons, anything that rail related is going on in this country, the Ministry of Railways is responsible. But the Ministry of Railways cannot undertake these big projects. They have to go to the Ministry of Finance and they have to go to the Ministry of Planning, Development and Reform. Again, same case, ye China mein bhi aise. Then enterprise level, at the project level, at the local level, ke who is going to look at the project. So ye for government ne, it is actually Pakistan Railways ne, since Pakistan Railways is doing its own job, they have this important job of train operations, unka day-to-day activity chal rahi hoti. So they created a project implementation unit for CPAC project ML-1. And this project implementation unit was doing all the work of ML-1, whether it was feasibility, whether it was a preliminary design, nothing to do with the CEO of Railways. But this project was developed. People were brought in from the market, rail related, of course, infrastructure expert, rolling stock expert, signaling expert, this financial expert, project management experts. So this project implementation unit, which is based in Lahore. So this was then working with the Chinese at the enterprise level. And I was the team leader of the project implementation unit for 3 years. I think it was from 2015 to 18. So that is where we developed the project. We did all these things and ready for implementation 3-4 years ago. Unfortunately, government has its own ideas. Now, when the government comes in and when political things come in, then things become very complicated actually. So technical cheese and all these things, they are left behind. Then these two governments now, Pakistan level and as I said, China level. These two, then how do they get together? They have formed a joint cooperation committee. When you look at the newspapers, look at the TV, aata rehta hai, the joint cooperation committee, this is the highest body between China and Pakistan under CPAC, where these two countries, the departments of these two countries come together and they work out the projects and they work out how we're going to go ahead, what kind of money is involved, what technicalities are involved. So isme then from China, the vice chairman of NDRC, National Development Reform Commission, जो their planning commission, उसका जो vice chairman है वो इसका head होता है. From our side, it is the Minister for Planning, Development and Reform. ये आजकल जो एहसन इकबाल साहब हैं, पहले आए कुछ अरसा खुसरो बख्तियार रहा, कुछ अरसा असद उमर रहा, तो ये फिर डील करते हैं. और ये मीटिंग्स हर तकरीबन 6 मंथली होती हैं. लेकिन अब तो खैर ये मैंने तो पुराना लिखा हुआ है, लेकिन अब एक मीटिंग हुई है मेरे ख्याल में कुछ अर्सा पहले, बट इट वाज ऑनलाइन. कोविड की वजह से a lot of things were spoiled, a lot of things were disrupted. Then under the Joint Cooperation Committee, JCC, this is the highest body. इसके नीचे then there are joint working groups. Now joint working groups, एक planning working group है where the secretaries planning meet with each other. The energy secretaries of water and power का they meet. Transport में secretary communications and railways वो they meet. And then Gavadir has been given a special working group. Chairman Gavadir Port Authority उसमें होता है. And जो इस तरह meetings इसकी ज़्यादा होती हैं. But before the Joint Cooperation Committee meets, the joint working groups have to thrash out the details. And frankly, these joint working groups, working with them, negotiating, is a professional task. ये कोई आसान काम नहीं है. You may go up with a lot of big ideas, but normally it is thrown out in the joint working. They tell you, okay, this we can't do, this we can't do. Yes, this we can do. We will look at it. But then when it comes to writing, everything has to be brought into writing. Then it goes to the JCC. And normally, when the joint working groups or whatever they are saying, it is normally taken up by the Cooperation Committee, unless the National Reform Commission of China and our Planning Commission or their Ministry of Finance and our Ministry of Finance, unless they have some objections. So working groups में these things are sorted out. So this is the kind of institutional mechanism which is true for all CPEC projects. इसमें जब the process that is done is वो भी एक maybe it comes up. If it doesn't, then I'm going to explain to you the projects कैसे होते हैं and how does it differ from the international institutions like World Bank and Asian Development Bank. One way is that here, once a project is approved by both the countries under CPEC, it is all agreed and written in framework agreements जो पहले हो जाती हैं, where it says that once you agree to do a project, then you go for bidding of the project. And once you have a contractor on board, a Chinese contractor on board, after that, then you go to the banks, and that is where then the loan rate and the return on the loan and the commitment fee and free time and all that, ये फिर चीजें उस वक्त आती हैं. In Asian Development Bank and World Bank and other institutions, उसमें ये होता है कि once the project is approved, you straight away go for bidding for the contractor because it has been committed, but not in China. Here, after the project has been approved by both the countries, you have to go for international bidding. Once you have the contractor on board, then you start negotiating the loan and all that. In Asian Development Bank, once the project is approved, they have the loan for you at a certain rate, of course. Now let us see what this ML-1 project is all about. So number one is the basic thing, as I always keep saying, that whenever you do a project, the why part is very, very important. Why? Aj bhi I was working for my department here, the Center of Excellence in Transportation and Railway Engineering. Oh, a magazine is coming out, so they wanted that please give us some objectives for the department, for the center. Now, of course, if you are establishing the center, you need to know कि किस लिए बना रहे हैं. तो खैर I had to put down वो उसको writing में और order में डालना, and of course, naturally, the need for having a center of excellence in transportation and railways. Over मैंने बताया कि जी वजह क्या है, because Pakistan government is investing heavily in transport sector. Transport sector has somehow been neglected in the past. It has not worked in sync. The most of the modes of transport have different ministries. So that is why, since the investment is going on, since projects under heavy projects, massive projects under CPEC are coming up in the road, in motorways, in railways, in ports and shipping, then there the CAREC is coming in. So your projects, since they're coming, the university felt a need for having a center of excellence in transportation, where we can have do the capacity building of people who can then work on these projects from Pakistan's point of view and not be always sort of captive to the outside professionals. So we need professionals in the transportation field. That is why we have the Center of Excellence. Of course, many other reasons. Research karna hai, we have to go for skill development. Of course, we have to go for education, academic education, MSs, and undergraduate studies. That is required for a country like Pakistan, jahan pe huge investments are going on. Then, of course, connectivity to the region, wo bhi bada important hai. Connecting to China, connecting to India, maybe in the future, connecting to Afghanistan and Central Asia. So for that, a center of excellence in transportation was essentially required. So just trying to tell you कि why क्या होता है, why क्यों है. So for ML1, why ML1? Why not ML2? Why not ML3? Why not have a new railway line? Why have a project of upgradation of ML1? ये सारी चीजें, if somebody comes, he says, oh यार ML1, forget it. Let us have a new project. Why not have a new project? Of course, you need a new project, but who pays for it and where's the money that you have? So since we had we had a system of railway network in Pakistan with ML1, ML2, ML3 branch lines, subsidiary lines. So then the government decided, let us upgrade ML1 first, then we will go ahead. So why ML1? Because the federal government of Pakistan decided that the railway share in the transport sector needs to be enhanced, increased. It has gone down. Once upon a time, the share was more. Now it has come down to less than 4%. So the government clearly said, and this was a policy statement by the government of Pakistan, saying that the share of railways should go up from less than 4% to more than 20%. और ये कब है? This was done 2013 में, and they said, okay, this is Vision 2025. 2025 they can increase this share of railways from less than 4 to 20%. Now this is about maybe 10 years or then, of course, since it came up in 13, इसके बाद then you started talking, then you started negotiating, then you said, how are we going to do it? Luckily, CPEC came in, so over. And why do we choose ML1? Mainline 1 from Karachi to, as I keep saying, Hyderabad, and then Rodi and Multan and Lahore and Islamabad and Peshawar. Why? Because already 80% of your existing traffic and the forecasts say that the future traffic will be moving on mainline 1, not mainline 2, not mainline 3. Why? Because your main industrial areas, your main population, your main big cities, your metropolitan cities, Pindi, Peshawar, Lahore, Multan, they are based on ML1. So that is why ML1 में फैसलाबाद भी आ जाता है. So that is why we said, okay, let us invest money in ML1. इसको upgrade करते हैं, and after upgradation, let us see whether the government's target of less than 4% to more than 20%, is that being met or not? If it is not being met, of course, then we had to go ahead and do other things and develop other lines. But luckily, with ML1, somehow, ये पूरा जो government का objective है, the aim from less than 4 to 20%, this was being met with ML1, luckily. Now what happened is that, as I said, CPEC came in. Had this government vision been there without CPEC, very frankly, it would have been a very big uphill task to achieve such a project. Because we are always short of financing. पैसे हमारे पास थे नहीं. We would have gone to World Bank, Asian Development. They would not have given you such a big amount. So luckily, CPEC came in, and in CPEC, this project was taken up, and they said, okay, we will finance. So, but before financing, the Chinese government and the Pakistan government, we sat down and said, let us, Chinese said that you have a study on the transportation systems of Pakistan. Frankly, we did not have a study. So they looked at the transport sector, whether it is roads or ports or railways or airlines or whatever, as one big monographic study between China, between Xinjiang, Western China, and Pakistan. So this study took maybe 1 year or 2 years. So they came and we jointly, people studied the different forecasts of traffic. They looked at different nodal points. They looked at the places where the traffic was being generated. They looked at raw materials coming in. They looked at exports being generated, not now, maybe for the future also. And then they identified in the monographic study where money was to be invested. Motorways, railways, ports, jaga jaga pe. This study then came out. So in this, again, as I said, unfortunately, our transport system is divided into different ministries. So different ministries had to play a role. All these ministries had to sit down and bring in their own thing. And in this mono means 8, single, monographic study. So this study that came up, they gave their findings saying that railway ML-1 needs to be developed. So the upgradation, they said we would like to upgrade it. We don't need a new line. This is good enough, but it needs to be upgraded and doubled. Some of the portions are single line. So main line 1 from Karachi to Lahore is double line, but from Lahore to Peshawar, most of the portions are single line. So the policy decision was taken that we are not going to only upgrade, but we are also going to double the main line. Right up to Peshawar, there will be a double line, and from Texla to Havelia, there will also be a double line. Up single line. From Lahore to Shadara to Pindi is Chaklala is single line. Again from Golra to Peshawar is single line. We are a double line, and Texla William is double line. So this was the consensus. And why the consensus? Although there is a lot of money to be spent on the double line, but the Chinese said that since you are upgrading, we don't have a single. The concept of having a single line we have done away with. So in upgradation, since you're going for upgradation, have a double line. Good enough. Then at that time, the estimated cost was $8.2 billion for the entire upgradation. It consisted of upgradation of almost everything, or everything I'm going to explain. The infrastructure part, the track part, the embankment part, the curves realignment, the tunnels construction, the signaling system construction, the railway stations needed to be repaired and renewed. So this was $8.2 billion at that time. Later on, it was changed to $6.8 billion. Why? Because the government thought the portfolio is too big to be handled by the government of Pakistan. And since our share had been fixed at 15%, we frankly did not have the money for even 15% when it was 8.2. Now it is $8.3 billion. So the project completion period, initially when I was there, a Chinese agreed to do it in 5 years. Later on, I don't know why the completion period went up to 9 years, probably because government thought they will not have the money to invest all this in 5 years. So they wanted to spread it out to 9. I frankly am against this being 9 years. Say 9 years is too long a period. In transportation projects, 2 points in ML-1 case is Karachi and Peshawar. They have to be connected. The sooner the better. Benefits will only be accrued once the 2 points are connected. Once those 2 determined points are connected. So Peshawar and Karachi ML-1 had to connect and quickly. So the Chinese said we will do it in 5 years. Frankly, I don't know why it went up to 9 years. So now they are renegotiating, of course, on the new terms. But this is unfortunately a hona nahi chahiye. Then initially we had 2 phases, phase 1 and phase 2. The government then, after 2018, they decided that we will have it in 3 phases. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Now, in our case, when I was there, phase 1 and phase 2, this did not mean that phase 1 will finish and then phase 2 will start. Some of the projects would go on simultaneously. If phase 1 goes into the first year, maybe some projects of phase 2 would come into the second year. In the second year. So ये था overlapping भी थी. Then parameters क्या है? What was upgradation? हो तो गया है. Yes, 8.2. What will be done in these 8.2? One is doubling of entire track from Karachi to Peshawar. Then the speed of passenger trains would be raised from 65/110 kilometers per hour to 160 kilometers per hour. Now our trains in some places cannot go beyond 65 kilometers per hour. Why? Because of the structure of the track, because of the track geometry, because of curves, because of other issues, gradients. यहाँ से, for example, between Gujar Khan and Jhelum, the speed limit is 65 kilometers. At this time in history, 65 is no speed at all. Then on, for example, Atak Bridge, your speed is limited to 15 kilometers an hour. Now for a train, there is no bridge, there is no tunnel, it should all go at one sectional speed. So that then, and then from Lala Musa onwards, it is 110 kilometers per hour, right up to Karachi. Now this is the designed speed of the track, most of it. So this then we said that in upgradation, once it is upgraded, money would be required to raise it to 160 kilometers per hour. And why 160 kilometers per hour? This is an important question. आप भी engineer हैं. You're also, most of you are civil engineers. I believe all of you are civil engineers. आप क्या समझते हैं? Why 160? Why not 200? Why not 250? जब upgrade कर रहे हैं, when you are upgrading anyway and you are spending money, what would be, why would you say that, sir, you should ask a question, sir, why are you fixing 160? तो बताएं, give me an answer.
सर ये जियोग्राफिक रीजन भी हो सकता है हमारा कि लाइक 160 ऊपर से ऊपर वो पॉसिबल ही नहीं होगा उस एरिया पे जो ऑलरेडी अवेलेबल है और उसको हमने अपग्रेड करना है. अपग्रेडेशन उसकी 160 तक ही पॉसिबल होगी लाइक.
नहीं, why 160? Why not 165? अच्छा चलो, एक गुड के जियोग्राफिकल रीजंस भी हो सकती है. यू आर राइट, इन सम प्लेसेस the gradient is such that you cannot even go at 160. At some places ये 120 पे भी रहेगी, लेकिन 160 क्यों है? चलो, any other attempt, any other guess? अच्छा, इसमें keep this, कहाँ बताएं?
आप बताएं सर. जी सर.
अच्छा, इसमें आप मानोगे, ये रेलवे वालों से पूछोगे ना, उनको भी पता नहीं होगा. इसमें 3 रीजंस हैं बड़ी. One is that the Chinese have upgraded their sections in a big way. One, of course, you see these high-speed railway in China, वो 300 किलोमीटर प्लस है. Now these are all new lines, but the Chinese experiment shows that the thumb rule is that when you are upgrading a 150-year-old embankment, you are upgrading 150-year-old bridges, and you are upgrading 150-year-old drainage systems जो पुरानी पड़ी हैं. The thumb rule is you don't go beyond 160. Number one. ये तो खैर thumb rule हो गया. Now this is their experiences जो उन्होंने हासिल की. Second, our most important thing is that Pakistan Railways is using diesel electric locomotives. Diesel electric locomotives on commercial use cannot go beyond 160 kilometers. Experimentally, yes, they can. If you attach 2 coaches, 3 coaches, you reduce the load, maybe they can go up to 200 kilometers. Masla nahi hai. But then for commercial use, the way our passenger trains are designed, then 160 for commercial use is the speed of the diesel locomotive, diesel electric locomotives. So ये limitation आ गई, number one. Now if you want to go beyond 160, you need to go for electric locomotives. You need to go for electric traction. ठीक हो गया? So इस double line पे electric traction डाल दे, this same infrastructure, the trains will go at 200-250 kilometers. It will depend on the locomotives then, number one. Third important reason is that we in Pakistan are running both passenger and freight trains on the same infrastructure. We don't have a separate dedicated line for passengers, and we don't have a separate dedicated line for freight. Isi on this same track, the freight train, which is a slow moving train, and the fast train, which is going at 160 kilometers per hour, passenger trains. So both these trains will be running on the same track. So the speed differential, there's a limit to the speed differential, because then it becomes unsafe to run trains at 200 kilometers per hour and to run these freight trains, heavy freight trains, loaded freight trains at 100 kilometers per hour. Of course, empty freight trains can go at 120 kilometers per hour. This is the way this track has been designed. So since we are running both the trains, freight and passenger goods ki trains and passenger trains on the same line, the speed differential should remain between 160 and 180, 100 or 80 kilometers. Otherwise, a fast moving passenger train will be a safety hazard for a sort of a slow moving passenger train will be a safety hazard for the fast moving passenger trains. So ये 3 reasons हैं. Number one, the embankment and the bridges and all these things, these foundations, you don't even, maybe with all the studies that we have, they say we are unsure whether this is good enough beyond 160. So they keep it to 1. Second is both the trains, freight and passenger, are running. And third is your limitation of the diesel electric locomotive. So ये 3 limitations हैं. That is why speed has been fixed at 160. Now let us say we have the money and we say, okay, we will have a dedicated freight corridor constructed. We will remove all the freight trains. Then this same track, which is good enough for 160, it can carry electric traction trains at 200 and 220 and 250 kilometers per hour. But then you need a separate double track for freight, or you need a new track for passengers. So ये reasons हैं. And remember this can be a question somewhere. These 3 reasons. Or इसमें then it was designed in a way where freight trains could operate at 120 kilometers per hour. Now saying 120 is okay, but when you have a loaded freight train, बड़ा मुश्किल होता है 120 achieve करना. So maybe some light container train can go at 120. So they're allowed. But normally what we have calculated in ML-1 is that the freight trains would travel at 100 kilometers when they are loaded and 120 kilometers when they are empty. Now, frankly, this is a very, very good jump when you look at the parameters that are changing from 110 to 160 for the freight train going at 100 kilometers per hour is zabardast. Our average speed of freight trains is, I think, 20 or 22. Maybe you look it up in the on the website on our yearbook. आपको नजर आ जाएगा. Pathetic है. Another very important thing where the capacities are being increased is that the axle load per axle, today it is 22.86 on the main line ML-1. This would increase to 25 tons of axle load. Isme naturally the bridges had to be upgraded. The bridges have to be strengthened. जी
सर जो हमारे पास फ्रेट ट्रेन की का वेट है वो की स्पीड है सर वो 120 है और पैसेंजर ट्रेन की 160 है ना सर. तो जब हमारे पास ये दोनों एक ही लाइन पे होंगे तो how will they manage like?
This is a good question. But you see, these trains are managed through the signaling system.
Okay, sir.
Through the signaling system, you can have a train going at even 30 kilometers per hour. पीछे से trains आ रही हैं at maybe even today at 110, 115 kilometers per hour. But yes, it is that signaling system which keeps it safe. वो अपना distance रखती हैं और it is through signaling that the operations are done. So that way, it is very safe. But as a rule, when you are having these fast trains going, then you should not have freight trains on that track, especially for high speed railway. You cannot have freight trains running on the same track. वो तो 300 kilometers पे जा रही. Freight train will go at 100 or maybe 120. So वो differential between 300 and 120 is too high and unsafe for operations. So then our system in ML-1 was that we would upgrade our axle load from 22.8 tons to 25 tons. Now, if each axle you add 3 more tons, this is where the capacity building comes in. And in a 4 axle thing, that means you have added at least 12 tons of payload in the same bogie. So you have efficient bogies, you have more payload. Payload means you get more revenues, more money, and you carry the goods in an efficient manner. So axle load, and I think I showed you when we were talking about India in the last few lectures, they have increased their payload axle load to 32 tons, I believe. From 25, they've gone up to 32 now. So very efficient. Then the entire track, of course, is being upgraded. The existing track is being upgraded. But when I said that the entire track, the project says entire track will be double line. So in this project, it is not a joke. 814 kilometers of a new track is being added. 814. आपका इस्लामाबाद लाहौर ये 270 किलोमीटर बनता है और मोटरवे पे 337 किलोमीटर. So 814 kilometers of new line is being added. Of course, this then raises the price. If you don't want a double line, a lot of expenses will be reduced. But it has been agreed that we will have a double. Then 2,655 kilometers of track will be upgraded. Now, why 2,655? Karachi se Peshawar is about 1,600 kilometers. So why? Because then both these tracks, here it is kilometer of track, up track and down track, dono upgrade honge. So 255 kilometers of existing tracks are being upgraded. It's a big project, very big. Then the project says that the most modern signaling system will be installed. Most modern signaling system will be installed. With signaling system, not only safety comes in, not only trains are regulated in a proper manner, but your line capacity increases manifold with a good signaling system. Signaling systems, if you have a good modern signaling system, your time, oh, I've forgotten the word for it. The gap between two trains is reduced tremendously if you have a modern color light system coming up, signaling system. After every 3-4 minutes, you can leave a train, or it will not be a safety hazard. Now, what is the modern signaling system? Number one, it is computer-based interlocking. At the railway station, all the जिसको कांटा कहते हैं ना, कांटा point, these are now being, in most of the places, are being operated mechanically. In some places, they are being operated manually. You pull a lever and the point is set for a train's path. But in the computer-based interlocking system, the station master simply touches a button on the computer and your point machine works, and the train sort of track is set for that train or for that line. So if you have maybe 10 lines, 11 lines, 4 lines, 3 lines at a railway station, depending on the size of the railway station, with a touch of a button, the train coming in from the main line will enter the railway station, and with whatever line he wants, maybe say out of 10 railway lines, he says, I want it on line number 4, which is vacant. So he just presses a button and the point is set through motors, through the computer, and it is set and locked and very safe. So this is known as computer-based interlocking. This is on the railway stations. CBI कहते हैं इसको. ये पाकिस्तान रेलवेज में हैं. This is not a new thing. Lahore had computer-based interlocking system 40-50 years ago. Westinghouse Motors signaling system was there. Now we have it on Lodra, entire Lodra Shadara section. Good, most modern. Then we have this auto block system. Auto block means that no two trains can enter one block section. Block section होता है दो स्टेशनों के बीच में. When I said that the signals will then regulate the trains, the signal will monitor the trains. It is through the signal that the trains are set apart. So auto block means that automatically the entire section, you don't need a railway station actually. Railway stations will be there for crossing of trains and for overtaking of trains. Otherwise, these signals are such that if a train has passed 2 signals, there can be another train coming in behind it, just 2 signals away. And similarly, after 2 signals, there can be another train and another train. So you can have 4 or 5 trains between maybe 2 stations. So this is known as auto block, automatic block. No 2 trains can enter. The signaling system, the electronic systems are sort of manufactured in such a way that it does not allow another train to enter. The signals come on, they become red. And even if he wants to, the driver wants to do something, there are mechanisms which will not let him do it. Now then there is this, in this modern signaling, that ML-1 for which ML-1 which have been planned for ML-1, we have the automatic train protection system, cab signaling, advanced road warnings. Now in this system, the driver in the train, he knows what the aspect of the next signal is, what the aspect of the next signal coming after that, maybe 3 or 4 signals. He knows what are the aspect, whether it is in red condition, whether it is danger, whether it is green or whatever. So this is known as computer. Now these signals are taken in by the from the ground onto the wheels and into the driver's cab. So everything he can see, that there are 4 trains ahead of me. One is 4 signals away, one is 10 signals away, one is such and such. So he knows what is going on. And this is all transferred to the cab. Cab कहते हैं वो engine का जो the cabin of the driver. So these are, and then if a driver passes, let us say he's gone to sleep, or he's become unconscious, or he's had a heart attack or something. If he crosses a signal in the red position, this train protection, automatic train protection system is such that immediately it will automatically apply brakes, and it will not go to the next signal. So that is what modern signaling is. So maybe you have 4 or 5 trains in the block section on the same track, 2 kilometers apart, 1 kilometer. It then depends on how far is your one signal post to another. And then this is how the line capacity is also increased. वो मैं आगे करके बताऊंगा. Then in signaling is the concept of centralized traffic control. इसको हम कहते हैं CTC. And let me tell you, CTC was there in 76 in Karachi. About, I have forgotten exact number, but maybe 30-40 stations were controlled from one tower. The entire station signals could be controlled from one tower. Directions were given by the central traffic control to the station masters that, okay, you put your signal down, you maybe you have received one train, put it on this line, there's another train coming, put it on that line. So this is centralized traffic control. And if the control sees that there's a congestion somewhere, फिर वो उसको adjust करता रहता. So this is a very modern signal. And some of this we have on our systems. Very modern, but of course, then in some places it is manual, and some places it is mechanical. That needs to, but ML-1 then from Karachi to Peshawar would have had the most modern signaling system, very safe and enhancing our line capacities. So ये 3-4 words हैं railways की signaling की दुनिया में इस्तेमाल होती हैं. This is CBI, which is computer-based interlocking. It pertains to the railway station only. उस इलाके में points को set करना होता है, वो computerized. और I wish we could go to one railway station and आप देखते कि manual कैसे होता है. So it saves a lot of time. Just one push of a button, the entire line is set. If it is occupied, it will not be set. ये भी है. These are all safe, run to safety type of thing. Failure is safe, always safe. अगर कोई खराबी आ जाए, it goes towards safety. It doesn't go towards anything else. In spite of all this, accidents होते. So ये अगर ML-1 पे इस तरह का सारा system आ गया, frankly, it is completely safe. कोई accidents का बहुत कम chances. Then auto block, as I said, is between 2 stations. Automatic train protection is within the cab of the driver. He can see the signals and warnings भी मिल जाती हैं, और protection भी हो सकती है train की. It can stop. Then for the bigger area, have maybe 30, 40, 50 stations. Say from Karachi to Hyderabad, you have one CTC. So वो सब traffic control हो रही है from Karachi to Hyderabad. तो ये चीजें हैं. Then grade separation. Going at 160 kilometers per hour is a good speed. It is a high speed, frankly. Anything going beyond 120 kilometers per hour, you cannot have crossings there on the same level. A grade separation means that one train, if the train is going at a certain level, the other traffic, whether it is roads or any other train crossing, that will have to be at a separate grade. Yeah, it will go overhead or it will go underground. It will not cross the same level. Now this, when you look at the motorways that we have from Peshawar to Islamabad and Islamabad to Lahore and Lahore to Multan, this, all your motorways are grade separated. You will not find 2 roads crossing. Any road you will not find crossing the motorway. They are either you have underpasses or you have overhead bridges. So why? Because as I said, in transport, if anything is going beyond 120, you have to separate the grade. So that is why, of course, it adds to the cost. But this is how it is. Now, if you are going beyond 120 kilometers per hour, which in our case is 160 kilometers per hour, you just cannot think of having a level crossing on the same grade. Now, from Karachi to Peshawar, we have these 751 level crossings, which have to be upgraded in the form of overhead bridges or in the form of underpasses. Now, very frankly, this itself is a huge expenditure. It is a nightmare in terms of administrative reasons. It is a nightmare in terms of cities and villages and towns. आप देखें level crossing को, there it connects two parts of a town or two parts of a village. बीच में train गुजर जाती है. Villages and towns and cities have developed around the railway line. So अब उसको underpass कैसे देते हैं? There may be two level crossings near to each other within maybe a kilometer or 2 kilometers. You, of course, there will be fights and all that. एक कहेगा इधर करें, the other will be saying I want it there. There will be political pressures, but this has to be done. And in such huge projects, then these small issues, then they have to be settled. Maybe it goes into litigation, some of it, like generally it will be done. So 751 level crossings, gates or unmanned, you need these grade separation. Then since we are again going beyond 120 kilometers, the track has to be fenced off. Even on the motorways, there's a fencing. Why? Because you are going at 120. Up 120 and 125 पे भी 130, 40 पे लोग चले जाते. So सारी fencing की हुई. ये these cattle and dogs and wild animals, they cannot cross, should not cross. But of course you find on the motorway कि कहीं track वो fence टूट गया, you find a dog entering or maybe some pig entering or some animal entering. But otherwise, this has to be isolated. Similarly, the railway track has to be isolated. Isolated in the sense that it has to be fenced off right from Karachi to Peshawar. Now, what kind of a fence is required? What design of a fence is required? Will the fence that is being that have been installed on the motorways, will that do for the railways? Frankly, no. The railways will have its own kind of fencing. In the cities, maybe they have to construct concrete walls to avoid crossings and to avoid people crossing the track. You must have seen in all these cities, the people just cross the railway track at their own will. There may be a train coming at a high speed, but they don't bother. And a lot of people are killed. But the railways, we call them trespassers. So killed, they don't even ask for the name. The policeman gets down and hands over the body to the local police, and then they try to find the person, his families. So, but this is disruption of train operations. So in the cities, probably we will be having concrete walls, high walls, so that nobody comes onto the train tracks. This is also done in other countries, in major cities where high-speed trains are going. Otherwise, the high-speed rail, which is 300 kilometers, they are running on elevated tracks. उनके लिए bridges बने हुए, so nobody comes in their path. But when they are entering cities, of course, then you have these concrete walls. Maybe out of the city, in suburban areas, you can have maybe a partial concrete in the lower thing, and then have these rail fencings on the top. And that will then depend, of course. But this is a huge cost that has to be done because fencing the track has to be isolated. Then ML-1, I'm just telling you that this is the kind, the huge volume of work that has to be done, or this 8.2 billion or $9 billion is going to be spent here. Just saying $8 billion, $9 billion is not enough. So this is the inside story, that this is how it is it will be spent and how it is going to be spent. Since there are 2,700 bridges which need to be upgraded to not only the axle load, increased axle load, they have to be increased to the speed. Our bridges are 160, 70, 50 years old, so a lot of work has to be done on them. And after we have already done the preliminary design and we have done the feasibility studies and hydrology studies. सारी चीजें हो गई हैं. Each of these bridges has been designed. Now, this does not mean that each bridge will be individually designed. Of course, it will be individually studied, but at times one design can go on for many bridges, except for, of course, major bridges. On the Atak Bridge, on River Ravi, on River Jhelum, these are major bridges. Then in the project, the curves have to be realigned. 550 curves have to be realigned. Why do they have to be realigned? Because now the curves have been designed for 110 kilometers per hour. At places they have been designed for 65 kilometers per hour. These are 4 degree, 5 degree, 6 degree curves. Degree of curve, your civil engineers, you should know what the degree is. So these then will be realigned because the curves have to be straightened out. For 160 kilometers per hour, these curves will not function. There will be safety hazards. So इनको निकालना पड़ेगा, and at times, just by getting some curves out, a lot of land will be required. New land will be required. So yeah, it's a huge task. Then 11 tunnels have to be dug, small and big. So ये भी एक इसका हिस्सा है. Then some structures, जो buildings हैं, वो इस design में हैं, इस project में हैं. One is, of course, Havelian dry port, huge dry port here where trains will come. Then they will be transshipped into, in the future, if we have a railway line from Havelian to Khunjrab to Kashgar, that will be a standard gauge. हमारा broad gauge है. यहाँ पे transshipment होनी है trains की. उसके लिए पूरा एक design हुआ है. Huge dry port. Then Lahore mein, there's a railway station, Lahore South Station, because the existing Lahore station cannot cater for the traffic that is will be generated. So we put it in the project that Lahore South Station is going to be designed सारी चीजें बन. Then some other railway stations have also been upgraded, और उनकी upgraded in the sense platforms नए बनने, because the track will be raised in some places. आजकल flooding हो रही है. You must have seen in the recent flood, a lot of track was flooded by water, and it remained flooded for a lot of time. So those places will be raised. Since they will be raised, maybe the station platforms have to be raised. The stations buildings have to be redesigned. So ये भी है. And luckily this our flooding of the track was part of the talks in Geneva, जो कल परसों conclude की हैं, where our Prime Minister went, and it is good that a lot of money has been pledged in these meetings. तो उसमें railway का भी हिस्सा है. Why? Because the railway track was badly affected. Now the railway track should not be affected by flood, but then you need money for it. But of course, this is in the ML-1 कि ये flood level से ऊपर जाए. Then in ML-1 project, human resource development is an important aspect. For that, the Walton Training Academy was to be upgraded, redesigned. Courses, one was the soft part, one was the hard part. Soft part wo hai where the training modules are to be changed and modified according to the modern ML-1, which will come up. Then, of course, the hard part is the buildings and the sports facilities and all, gymnasium or things like that. So yeah, it is part of the ML-1 project. Then, very important, the line capacity will increase from 34 trains each way per day to 171 trains each way per day. Now 34 and 171. ये तकरीबन when you look at it, this is about 6 times jump. of the number of trains that can be put on the track. Why can they be put on the track? Number one, that the track will be upgraded. Number two, because the signaling system will be upgraded. And these two together, the speeds will increase, number one. And secondly, because of the signaling system, a lot of trains can be put on the track and they can run after each other. So 171 trains can then be run between Karachi and Peshawar every day, just following each other up. Now 171 divided by 24 hours, you'll see how many trains per hour. There were minutes, man. I think after every 8 minutes, we can run a train. But so this capacity will go up. But how do we use this capacity? Now it is 34 trains each way. And Mac, frankly, not keeping the floods in view, but before the floods, almost the 34 trains per day each way, this capacity had been exhausted. We could not even add 1 or 2 more trains. ये तो floods आए तो trains कम होगी, passenger trains. Otherwise ये capacity exhausts. So ML-1 has to be upgraded, and it is a must for what the government wants if you want to increase the volumes. Now 171 trains keep this in view, that Pakistan Railways will definitely not have the capacity of utilizing this enhanced 171 trains per day. So here keep in view that when the line capacity goes up from 34 to 171, the private sector will be coming in. वो फिर अपनी ट्रेनें लाएंगे, they will bring their own locomotives, they will bring in their own freight wagons, they will bring in their own passenger coaches अगर चलाना चाहते हैं, so they can run their track and their trains on the excess capacity available by paying per ton kilometer or per passenger kilometer. पैसे पर determine होंगे. So the railways then will open up to the private sector in a big way under the public-private partnership program. The infrastructure will remain with the railways, the stations, the signaling system. ये Pakistan Railways के पास रहेंगे, but it will work like a landlord, allow the private train operators to run their trains on the available capacity. Exactly what is happening in the motorways. The motorway belongs to the government, but the वहाँ पे toll ले रहे हैं, FWO ले रहा है या कोई और ले रहा है. So the bus comes in, the truck comes in, all kinds of vehicles come in, motor आ जाती है, jeep आ जाता है, whatever, Suzuki आ जाए, they can run, they just pay the toll and they can go on the motor. Similarly, when the ML-1 is upgraded, this will be the condition. It will be like construction of a motorway on the rail. ये हो जाएगा, and then this capacity will increase and people can use it, private sector can use it. And this is actual development यहाँ पे. There, when you look at the development indicators, the parameters, one is your speed going up from 110 to 160 with no interruptions on the bridges or no interruptions anywhere, just going straight at 160. Second is your axle load, जो कि बढ़ जाएगा from 22.8 to 25 tons. And third is your line capacity, which will go up from 34 trains each way to 171 trains each way. Then what will happen now? As I keep saying, railways is nothing except operation of trains. So train basic unit hai. How you operate these trains, how maximum you make use of the infrastructure on the and the rolling stock, that is where efficiency comes in. Now freight train loads, today the capacity is 1650 tons per train. हमारी ये capacity है. This will go up to 2400 tons on ML-1. Why? एक तो axle load 25 हो जाएगा, दूसरा उसकी hauling power बेहतर हो जाएगी, बाकी चीजें हो जाएंगी. So up 1650 से we will go up to 2400 tons of payload. So this is a good increase of about almost 800 tons per train. Then you can ask a question, sir, here you are putting in so much of money and so much of resources and you're upgrading ML-1. Is the traffic there? What does the traffic forecast say? Tomorrow, if you have a railway line constructed ML1 and we make all this and there is no traffic, the best part is, the consolation is, and you can rest assured that freight volumes on ML1 will increase from 6 to 7 million tons to 35 million tons per year. And let me tell you, independent forecasts, traffic forecasts by World Bank, by Asian Development Bank, by the Chinese, they say that it will be more than 35 million tons if you have ML1 upgraded. The traffic is still there, but it cannot be moved. This is the irony. So passenger trains will be, number of passenger trains जो अभी हैं, इसको ये double हो जाएंगी, and उनकी capacity भी बढ़ जाएगी. But then running that railway and generating revenue out of it, that will always depend on how you make use of the assets. The assets are the track and the rolling stock and the human resource. कैसे इस्तेमाल करते हैं? If you start, जिस तरह अभी है, if you start running passenger trains and you do not pick up this 35 million tons of freight and cargo which is available to you, and you concentrate on political sort of decisions and say that, okay, more passenger trains, everyone wants to go by train at 160 kilometers per hour. Why? Because the transit times have been reduced by half, almost half. So then I think things will go bad. So that mix of passenger and freight trains, that ML1 has been designed for 60% passenger freight trains, 30% passenger trains, and 5 to 10% others. Or maybe you can say 60% freight trains, 35% passenger trains, and 5% others. Others means from land or from stations or from publicity or whatever. So wo others mein aa jata. Now, why are we doing all this? Why are we upgrading? Number one, the traffic is there, okay. But why will the traffic come here? Why? Because you're basically in transportation, transit time between two destinations is very, very important for everybody. Everyone wants to move quickly. Everyone wants to go fast. If you can go by air, yes, that is very fast. But at times now, in certain, especially in China, where high-speed railway is running, the trains are much more faster. When you look at the total transit time, they are much more faster than the air, especially for cities that are less than 1,000 kilometers apart. So reduction in journey time is very important. And if this, with ML1 coming in, I will show you the transit times will be drastically reduced, which I personally think is good enough for Pakistan for maybe the next few years. Of course, one would like that we should have trains at 300 kilometers per hour. But then who's going to pay? These trains are very, very expensive. Then somebody has to pay for it. Uspe construction costs are huge. Having desires and having wishes, one thing, but being then practical is another thing. Now, if we can improve our speeds to 160 kilometer and we can reduce the transit times, I think this is more than enough for the next 20-30 years. Yes, and we improve and we get our economy starts growing and our financial position becomes good. Why not? We can have a high-speed train initially between Hyderabad and Karachi and between Islamabad and Lahore. Why not? Maybe Lahore and Multan. So wo hoga. So these with ML1 upgradation, when the project is finished, journey times for passenger trains will be reduced and also for freight trains. Here I'm going to explain this, then I think I will stop. Mera muh सूख गया वैसे. So the transit times are, just show you. पहले तो कराची लाहौर, ये बहुत बड़ा सेक्टर है. For people in KP, हम वो कहते रहते हैं कि जी कराची, हर बंदा, you're always, people tend to talk of Karachi and Lahore unfortunately, these are big cities. You can't do anything. The traffic is there. People want to move. Affluence है वहाँ, industry है, trade है, commerce है. Somehow हम कुछ KP थोड़ा सा पीछे हैं, but we are very lucky that Peshawar is the destination point for ML-1, and without coming to Peshawar, ML-1 का फायदा नहीं. So कराची लाहौर का ट्रांजिट टाइम अब 18 घंटे है. ये जो हमारी नॉन स्टॉप ट्रेन हैं, ये 17 से 18 घंटे, 19 घंटे, 20 घंटे लेती हैं between Karachi and Lahore. This will come down to almost, ये तो यहाँ मैंने 10 लिखा है, but I think they will come down to 9 hours if you have a non-stop overnight train going. So इससे बेहतर क्या होगा? You sit, enter a train at sort of 10 o'clock in the night, रात को 10 बजे बैठे, and within 10 hours or 9 hours, you are into morning 6, 7 o'clock, you are in Karachi. Can't be better, frankly. And even in the morning, if you sit in a train at 6 o'clock in the morning, or Lahore se chali ya Karachi se chale, and 10 hours mein, by evening 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, you're in Lahore and you're in Karachi. Good enough. इसी तरह Lahore Multan, आजकल it takes about 5 hours. This will come down to 3 hours. And by reducing these times, transit times, you will be changing the entire demography of the cities. People would tend to go for work on a daily basis. Business वाले daily जाएंगे. कहेंगे okay यार आज let me go to Karachi, do my business there. रात को बैठ के I'll be back. So I'll just waste one day. और रात की ट्रेन से जाके early morning you go to the bazaar, do your thing, sit in the evening train, come back to. So Lahore, Islamabad, with the upgradation and with one section जिसको हम कहते हैं Kaluwal Pandora, this is 50-55 kilometers of track, so double भी हो जाएगा. So Lahore, Islamabad from 4 hours 30 minutes today, it will come down to 2 hours and 30 minutes. Now let me tell you 4 hours and 30 minutes motorway पे speed है, transit time है. Lahore और Karachi में जो best buses हैं, whether Faisal Movers है और Daewoo तो अब अच्छा नहीं रहा, but all these they take 4.5 hours, and your train will take 2.5 hours. So बहुत बड़ा difference है, 2 hours का difference. So everyone will be traveling inshallah by ML-1 by train. इसी तरह Peshawar, Islamabad, now it takes 3:45 hours, it will take 1 hour 45 minutes. As good as your motorway, as good as anything. GT road तो congested होगी. Then Karachi, Hyderabad, ये इसलिए है कि हैदराबाद कराची बहुत बड़ी cities हैं दोनों. So ये 2 hours अभी लगता है, it will just come down to 1 hour and 20 minutes. And let me tell you, I can foresee private investment between some sections. चूंकि line capacity भी बढ़ जाएगी, हैदराबाद कराची में बड़ा potential है. Private sector can come in. Islamabad, Lahore में बड़ा potential है. Private sector can come in, run their trains, passenger trains on Pakistan railway tracks and pay per kilometer. So this is, अच्छा then ये जो ये मैंने यहाँ दिखाया ना,
सर ये पेशावर इस्लामाबाद वाला तो 3 घंटे 45 मिनट, ये तो गलत नहीं है सर? मोटरवे पे नहीं,
ये ट्रेन की बात कर रहे हैं, ये ट्रेन टाइमिंग्स हैं. अब मोटरवे पे मेरे ख्याल में आपके 1 hour 45, 1 hour 2 hours लगते हैं. तो ये रेलवे 145 पे आ जाएगी, राइट फ्रॉम द सेंटर ऑफ पेशावर कैंट स्टेशन से सेंटर ऑफ पिंडी स्टेशन शहर के अंदर आपको उतारेगी 145 मिनट्स में. अब मोटरवे की मेरे ख्याल में 2 घंटे लगते हैं. ये ट्रेन की स्पीड्स दिखा रहा हूं अभी. मोटरवे के साथ तो वैसे ही कंपैरिजन मैंने की है. मोटरवे कंपैरिजन मैंने इस्लामाबाद लाहौर आपको बताया कि जो बसेस हैं वो 4.5 घंटे लेती. तो आप well imagine, you can well imagine what effect it will have if it is 2.5 hours. 2 घंटे कट जाते हैं यार. And then picking up somebody from the heart of the city and Pindi to the heart of the city in Lahore. So what better can it be? So this is at 160 and 120 kilometers per hour. कई जगहों पे 120 भी होगा because ये mountainous area है. वहां पे I think the design speed is 120. जा सकती है 160 पे, लेकिन फिर लोड रिड्यूस करना पड़ेगा, ये करना पड़ेगा वो, तो खैर, बट दिस इज द ट्रांजिट टाइम. आई थिंक दिस इज the best we can have, and I personally think this is good enough for next 20-30 years.
Yes, sir. This is great achievement, sir.
हाँ, बट हो जाए, अल्लाह करेगा हो जाए. तो खैर वो इसमें है, लेट्स सी कैसे होता है. तो ये आपका एज आई सेड एक वो 1 मिनट है. ये जो सेक्शंस है ना, ये जस्ट टू बीइंग पीपल डूइंग योर ट्रांसपोर्ट, आपको बहुत जरूरी है कि वो होना चाहिए, आपका सेंस होना चाहिए ज्योग्राफी का. ठीक है, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन में एमएस ट्रांसपोर्टेशन कर रहे हैं तो यू शुड बी अवेयर ऑफ दिस. नाउ दिस इज कराची हेयर. ये क्या मैंने उठा लिया, ये कराची. व्हेन आई टॉक ऑफ कराची हैदराबाद, ये हैदराबाद है. ये ह्यूज सिटीज. कराची हैदराबाद अगर ट्रेन फुल स्पीड पे चले और इस तरह 1 hour 20 minutes लेंगे ना, इट विल फीड ऑल दिस एरिया, मीरपुर खास, और ये सारा यहाँ तक इसको फीड करेगा. पीपल विल नेवर गो बाय बस, दे विल गो ट्रेवल बाय ट्रेन. इसी तरह यहाँ पे लाहौर, ये लाहौर है. इसी तरह इस्लामाबाद. तो ये 1 minute, ये ये 2.5 hours, जबरदस्त टाइम, गुड. एंड इसी तरह लाहौर एंड मुल्तान, ये this will come down to 3 hours from 5 hours. So huge savings in man hour savings, or हर चीज saving, fuel saving, everything, and better use of your rolling stock. 3 घंटे में पहुंच गई, वापस